All right, today the focus is going to be writing the equations of a circle and using the equations in order to graph a circle. So the very first thing that we have to understand is the equation for a circle is x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equal to r squared. You could probably figure out that the r value stands for radius. Okay, and then the new part is the h comma k is going to stand for the center of the circle. And then a little caveat to this that you should probably be aware of is that if you are ever given just plain old x squared plus y squared equal to r squared, your center is going to be the origin because you're not adding or subtracting anything to our x or our y. Okay? So in the first example, they give us that the center is at 2, -4. What they're telling us is that h is equal to 2 and k is equal to -4. And then the radius is 3, so r is equal to 3. So if I plug that all into this formula, I would have x minus 2, because I'm subtracting my h value, squared, plus y plus 4 squared, because when I subtract a -4, I end up with a +4, equal to 3 squared, which is 9. Okay? So big thing that you have to understand is that your parentheses are always going to be the opposites of the numbers that they give you for the center. Okay? So an example down here for number 2 is for you to just go the other way and to practice that idea of the opposites. So our center is going to be at 3, -1. It's going to be at -6, 2. It's going to be at 0, because nothing's being added or subtracted, and then -2. So just understand it's always the opposites. And then your radius ends up being the square root, and the square root. Well, the square root of 49 is 7, the square root of 4 is 2. There is no square root of 5, so we're just going to leave it as the square root of 5. Okay? All right, to make it a little bit tougher, now we're going to talk about a point that is on the circle and the center. Our focus here is going to be to solve for the radius, or the radius squared, so that we can complete our equation. So based upon what we know, we have a center at 5, -1, and a point on the circle at 1, 2. So if I were to just make like a little sketch of this, it would look like this with 5, -1 at the center, and then 1, 2 on the circle. So what we don't know is this length here, which is our r value. So we can use the distance formula to solve for r. That's one way to do it, but that means you need to remember the distance formula. Or if we take what we do know, okay, we know that the center is at 5, -1, and begin to set up our equation of x minus 5 squared plus y plus 1 squared equal to r squared, then I can take the 1 and the 2 and I can plug these in for x and y. So I could do 1 minus 5 squared plus 2 plus 1 squared equal to r squared. And notice that when I'm done, I'll know what r squared is, and then I can just plug it into my equation. So 1 minus 5 is -4, squared is 16. 2 plus 1 is 3, squared is 9. 16 plus 9 is equal to 25, which is going to equal my r squared. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to change this r squared up here to a 25, and now I've got my equation. Okay, so a lot of people circle this and say that they're done, they figured out what r squared is, but that's not the goal. The goal is to write the equation, so you got to make sure you plug it back in. So if we do this one more time, okay, I'll kind of go step by step with this. All right, your step 1, okay, is to basically write an equation. So I'm going to write, based upon the center being at 2, 6, x minus 2 quantity squared plus y minus 6 quantity squared equal to r squared. Okay, step 2. Okay, I am going to plug in. So plug in for x and y. So I'm going to plug in negative 1 and 4 for x and y. So I'm going to do negative 1 minus 2 squared plus 4 minus 6 squared equal to r squared. Well, negative 1 minus 2 is negative 3, squared is 9. 4 minus 6 is 2, squared is 4. Okay, equal to r squared. R squared is equal to 13. Okay, and then the third and final step is going to be to write the equation. Okay, so similar to step number 1, but now that you know what r squared is, we can complete it. X minus 2 squared plus y minus 6 squared equals 13. And that's what I'm looking for. And you don't have to, I know you can easily, like if we go back to example 3, is you could take the square root and the square root and figure out that r is equal to 5. But remember, our equation involves r squared, so all you would end up doing is squaring that right back. So there's no point in doing that. You can just basically just leave it as r squared for now. All right, page 2. So using these concepts, the idea is to come up with a graph. So we give a little checklist over here, okay, in terms of how to do it. And just so you notice, this little 9 kind of got moved over, so we're going to put that back up there. So we are going to start with our center, okay, and we just talked about the center being the opposites, so it's at negative 2, 3. And the radius we get by doing the square root, so that's 3. So I determine the center and the radius. Now I have to graph the center. So I go to negative 2, 3. I'm going to zoom in on this a little bit, okay. So I go to negative 2, 3, and I graph my center. And then my radius is 3, so I am going to go 3 to the right and graph a point, 3 up and graph a point, 3 to the left and graph a point, and down 3 and graph a point. And I'm going to do the best I can in order to make a circle and not a diamond, okay, by just connecting the 4 points, okay. So if I do the same with example 6, well, they give me, it looks like a center at negative 5, 2, and a radius of 4. So I'm going to go to negative 5, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up 2. And then since my radius is 4, to the right 4, up 4, down 4, and to the left 4. Okay, and then I do the best I can in order to create a circle. Okay, and that's it. So it's like the stuff we did on the front page. You just have to be able to identify the center and the radius so that you can graph. So on the 7th example, all we're doing is going the other way. They graphed it for us. Now we have to write the equation. So it'd be helpful to know what the center is. Well, you have to pay attention to the fact that this is a 5, which means each of the blocks are going up by 5. So this center is going to be at 5, 0. So that means I'm going to have x minus 5 squared plus y squared equal to my r squared. Well, r is the distance from the center out to the circle. Some of you might be thinking that r is equal to 2, but we're going up 5 and we're going up 5 because each square is 5, so the radius, okay, is equal to 10, and 10 squared is going to equal 100. So there's my equation going backwards. Last page. For this, if I want to determine whether or not a point is on the circle, I'm going to plug the point in, and if it works, it's on the circle. If it doesn't work, it's not on the circle. Similar to what you did in algebra with determining whether or not a point is on a line. So I'm going to plug in my negative 2 for x and my negative 1 for y. So I have negative 2 plus 2 quantity squared plus negative 1 minus 4 quantity squared equal to 25. Well, negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Squared is 0. So negative 1 minus 4 is negative 5. And then negative 5 squared is 25. So 0 plus 25 equals 25. Check, it works. That means yes, it is on the circle. Okay. If you have any questions, bring them to class.